Welcome back to this session of Education Now. My name's Alec and I'm a student here at CTE. Today we have our presenter, again, Dr. Ralph Kerr, President of the Teaching and Learning Institute. This is session 3 of an opportunity to get involved in your local public school district. In this session we'll be looking at what is the time commitment a board member makes when joining, how does a person actually become a candidate. There's no doubt a timeline in becoming a school board member, so what is that timeline in this case? Dr. Kerr will also be explaining how the Teaching and Learning Institute can help a person interested in becoming a school board candidate. And finally, are there any other ways a person can get involved in their school district besides becoming a school board candidate? So, Dr. Kerr, I know you touched on it a little bit in the past section, but what is the time commitment in becoming a school board candidate?
Well, Alex, that's a good question to start our third session. And before I get into that, I want to just remind our viewers that I am a school board member. And so when I talk about these things, particularly in this session, I speak from experience in terms of the time commitment. That is that every board, the superintendent puts out a packet of material in advance of the board meeting. And it's really important for the functioning of the board that every board member read that packet and become familiar with the information that's in there. And I say in terms of commitment that you should figure at least an hour to do that. And then secondly, it's really important that board members attend the board meetings, obviously. And depending on the district, that may be one meeting a month or maybe 2 meetings a month. Those can last for 2 or 3 hours each. So it might be another 6-hour commitment to the board meeting itself. And then something that is really hard to put a timeline on, but once people become aware of the fact that you are on the board, there'll be occasions, sometimes at social events or at church or places like that, where somebody will come up to you and want to talk with you about something that's going on in the school. And obviously, it's important that you be a good listener and be able to respond to that. I should say here, though, that it's important that board members don't think that because they hear a concern, it's their responsibility to resolve it, because that gets into the whole issue of the management of the school district, which really relates to administration. It's really important also that board members attend various functions within the district. Like many districts have a National Honor Society, and it's really important that board members attend events like that, or maybe sporting events or other events, so that people in the community realize that the board members are really involved in what's going on, not just sitting in a boardroom somewhere involved at that regard. Then I mentioned also the training that is offered. Initial board members, when they first get on, have to take specific training that's offered by the New York State School Boards Association. But then there are other trainings that are offered throughout the year, and it would be important that board members take advantage of those. So in order to summarize, I've kind of put that down that it's probably about 6 hours a week. That will vary, obviously, by what's going on in the district. But I think if a person is thinking about running for school board, they should be thinking about carving out at least 6 hours a week that would be taken on school board related things.
Okay. Now that we know the time commitment, how does one actually become a member?
Well, that's really the crux of all of these sessions, really. How does one become a member or a board member, a candidate? First of all, you have to fill out what's called a nominating petition no later than 30 days before the annual meeting or a special meeting within the board, or within the district, I should say. And certainly the best way to get that information is to contact the district clerk at the central office of the school district, and he or she can give you a petition and tell you the process that's involved. The annual or special district meeting that I mentioned is held 14 days or less before the actual election, which is in May. So you have to get your filing petition in before then. And then on the third Tuesday in May is actually election day, and it's the day when residents, qualified voters in the district, get to vote on the school budget. And then the term for the new board member begins on July 1st. So that's the process involved in actually becoming a candidate for school board.
So part of becoming a candidate is knowing the timeline involved. What's the timeline in this process?
Well, it would be important that someone who's thinking about running for their school board think about it before they just turn around and file a petition, because there's a lot to think about, as we've discussed in these various sessions. But certainly starting in January, February, and March, people that are thinking about running for their school board should be attending the school board meetings. Now, this past year with the pandemic, most districts were holding their meetings via Zoom or GoToMeeting, and anybody that's interested could actually go into those meetings that way. But in normal circumstances, whatever that might mean, the board meets on a regular basis, generally at the central office, and it's important that that potential candidates attend the board meetings so that they can sort of get a feel for what the board is discussing, who's on the board, as we mentioned earlier. Sometimes I'd like to say that if people are in a mode in their personal life that they pray about things, that certainly we would encourage people to consider and pray about becoming a candidate for school board. One could say you need all the prayers you can get if you're a school board member. That's probably true, so it's not a bad place to start, actually. And then determine why you're interested in becoming a candidate. And we've talked about some of the reasons not to run, some reasons to run. You need to really think about that in the sense that you can then articulate that to other people as you go around the district trying to get people to vote for you. And then also by attending the board meetings or reading district materials, you would find out who is currently on the school board, when their term is up, because all districts have a staggering expiration date for their candidates, and then also determine whether the people that are currently on the board are going to run again. That would be called an incumbent. And I might just say that as in most political type things, an incumbent definitely has an advantage unless they've really done a bad job. But if they've been doing a decent job, then running against an incumbent can be more difficult than if there is not an incumbent. But having said that, at least if you know who your competition is, that can be helpful. So all of that should be taking place in the January to March time frame. And then in March and April, again, in preparation for the actual vote in May, one needs to make the decision. Am I going to run or am I not? And then they need to circulate the petition and get a prescribed number of signatures on that petition. And again, the district clerk can give you all the details of this. And then you need to plan a campaign strategy. This, as I said before, this is either a win or lose situation. So if you're serious about running, you need to figure out, okay, what am I going to do that will let people know that I am a serious candidate for the board? And then you need to go about enlisting support. People that commit that when the time comes in May, they're going to vote for you. And there's a whole bunch of ways that can be done. Then starting in May, there needs to be a real serious campaign begun. And this could take on things like having, in some communities, signs on the front lawn, vote for so-and-so for school board. You may have seen those. In other places, it may be taking an ad out in the Penny Saver or in the local newspaper. But figure out how you're going to run your campaign and then actually conduct the campaign. And then get ready for the third Tuesday in May when your fate is decided. And hopefully you're elected to the board.
Awesome. Now, our viewers may be wondering if there's any way they can receive help, as in like advice or counsel. In better words, Does the Teaching and Learning Institute provide assistance to people that are potentially looking to become a candidate?
Yes, we certainly do. That's a great question. Here's some ways that we can help. If there are people that are looking at these sessions and are serious about considering being a candidate, in just a minute we're going to tell how to get in contact with me, but we're prepared to answer any questions that any viewer might have. As I mentioned before, for 18 years I was a school superintendent in public schools, and then I'm currently a board member, so I have lots of experience in the public school system, and I can, I think, answer most questions that people might have in their mind. I can also provide additional details, more details, I should say, about anything that we've talked about in these particular sessions. And then one of the things that I take very seriously is to try to help people articulate why they're interested in running for the board. I mentioned in a previous session that one woman that called me said that she was interested in running for the board because she wanted her daughter to go to cosmetology at the CT center, and the administration wouldn't let that happen. I might say that I discouraged that person from running, because that's not a good reason to run. So one of the things that I try to do is, in those conversations, is to actually have a conversation with the people about why they're interested in running, and try to help them put that into focus so that they can clearly articulate with people in the community why they're interested. We can certainly help people develop a campaign strategy in terms of how do you go about, what are you trying to do in a campaign? How do you do that? We're certainly in a position to review campaign materials. These would be written things that you might give out to people. It's always good in any situation to have somebody take a look at something that you've written and see if they have any suggestions about corrections or changes that they might make that might be more appealing to people as they read your material. It may even be that we'll be in a position, we have done this on occasion, to provide some financial assistance to serious candidates who are looking to develop a campaign that may cost some money, and they're not able to provide that all for themselves. We are able also to provide ongoing support. It's not unusual for me to get calls from a sitting school board member who says, for instance, boy, I just got my first packet of materials and it's just full of financial reports. I have no idea how to read them. Well, again, we can kind of walk people through that so that it's really part of the in-service program that we can offer to potential school board candidates. And then finally, because in any school district other than the one where I live, I have no vested interest in a person being a candidate as far as what their questions might be. They might have some personnel questions or policy questions, and we can provide independent and unbiased answers to questions that people might have along that line. So those are some of the ways that we think TLI can actually offer some assistance to potential candidates.
All right. Now, there also may be some people watching that are interested in helping their local school district, but are wondering if there's any other way of helping besides making that major commitment of becoming a school board candidate.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you used the word major, because indeed it is. It's a major commitment that people are making. And there are some ways that people can still be involved in their district without making that major decision. First of all, I encourage everybody, whether you have any interest in running for your school board or not, that you attend a school board meeting and just see how that works, what it's like, find out what the board is doing, and then once you have a sense of what the board is working on, there may be occasions where you would want to say something to the board. Now, it's important to know that board meetings are meetings of the Board of Education. They're not community forums. Most boards do have an opportunity or give an opportunity for residents to speak, but they don't have to do that. But if you have an issue that you're interested in, again, check with the district clerk and see what the process is in your district to have an opportunity to speak to the board about whatever might be of concern to you. Starting in about December or January, boards of education work on developing the school budget for the following year. And it's helpful to ask the school, could I have a copy of the draft budget so I can take a look at it? And having done that, if you see things that you're interested in, be willing to make some constructive suggestions about what's in the budget. Again, if you're a taxpayer, you might have a lot of interest in that aspect of it. There's also a vehicle that people very often don't think of, and that is consider writing a letter to the editor of your local newspaper or the Penny Saver expressing your views on education. And then very often schools are looking for people to volunteer to be on committees, various kinds, either of the board or a community committee, and that's another way to get involved without making the major commitment to be a school board member. Other things that you could do would be if the district provides a district newsletter, make sure that you read that. So again, you know what's going on. Most districts have either a PTA or a PTO, and if they have that, that's a parent-teacher organization. Join that, and that way you can become more involved in the education of the children. Particularly at the elementary school, teachers love to have community residents come in and read to the children. Very often you can bring in your own book, as long as it's appropriate for the grade level and the content, or if you're not up for that, if you ask the teacher to provide you a book, they'll be happy to do that. It's a great way. I love going into the school and reading to the children. They really enjoy hearing a different voice and seeing a different person, and that's certainly a way that you can volunteer. It may be that in your district you can even volunteer to help out in the cafeteria. Sometimes that can be really humbling, but it's a good way to get involved. Here's the most important thing I can say, though, about being involved other than on the school board, and that is to always present yourself as a positive person. A person who's looking to encourage good things that are happening already in the district, and not a negative person who finds fault with everything. I don't think you enjoy being around, Alex, being around people that are downers all the time in their attitude. Most of us don't appreciate that. And this is so important that you develop an attitude within your school district that when Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so come into the building, they're going to bring a ray of sunshine instead of doom and gloom about what's going on. So those are all ways that people can be involved. And then I have to go back one more time and say, but for this purpose, the best reason to be involved is that you would consider becoming a school board member.
Awesome. Is there any way the viewers can contact you for more information?
There certainly is. Again, I'm Dr. Ralph Kerr, and I'm the president of the Teaching and Learning Institute. And our website is very simple. It's www.yrun.org. yrun.org. And my phone number is 716-969-0688. And that's my cell phone number. I'm happy to talk with anybody about anything that we've talked about in these sessions. And we're located in Houghton, New York. And happy to talk with anybody and would encourage you to contact me through any of these means that we've discussed today.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Kerr. And thank you all for joining us on this edition of Education Now.
This presentation of Education Now has been brought to you by the Teaching and Learning Institute of Houghton, New York. This program has been produced by the students in the audiovisual production class at the Cattaraugus Allegheny BOCES, Olean, New York.